This book, if it can even be called that, has been a long process. Actually, let me start at the beginning. This book is a collection of images, text, and diagrams all compiled from a gallery I completed in the fall. The idea came from a thought I had of me having a Darwin-like character travel through a land unknown to him. Instead of finding animals, he found cultures. I tried to explain this as authentically as I could, therefore I made this field journal. The journal is an accordion fold with two sides for different purposes. The covers, the front shown here, is a zinc plate, bitten through completely and etched with intaglio ink, plexiglass, and beaten leather. There was a language created to help illustrate the authenticity of this man's journeys, and this language is also seen carved into this cover plate. Once the plates are opened, we are led through one side of the accordion fold book. The pages are filled with journal entries, the typed text, quick field notes scribbled in the margin, and etched monotype prints in later watercolor. Once the book is open, we realize how real these journal entries seem. They're incorporated with images and notes as if someone had really been on this journey. Each of these images is a print based off plexiglass etching. After the print was made, I went back in with watercolor, incorporating little details within the pages as well, artifacts which would have had to do with each of the cultures. An additional part of my printmaking process was using chine-colle, which is shown here in the blue. It incorporated white ink and then the blue chine-colle. It soon becomes apparent that the person who wrote this journal is slightly obsessed with these cultures that he's researching. As a result, the journals become slightly biased, and we realize what he really is thinking about these different cultures. This plate shown here is one of the largest in the book, somewhere around 10 by 14 inches. Each of these images are also accompanied by maps, which are a series of foldouts and other origami bookmaking techniques which I had to learn for the book. The book technically has three different types of bookmaking within it. There's a Venetian blindfold, which is shown here to help show another map for another culture, the mainlander culture. In addition to this, there are fold-out maps, there are other pictures, more watercolor illustrations, and an entire exhibit for each culture. In addition to that, there's also a second language that I created to help sort of show another culture. This language is a tonal language, and it has its own writing system and systems for poetry and for grammar. The book also has several diagrams on costuming, on the way people would have dressed in each of these cultures, and on what the materials were made from. There are also two Prismacolor illustrations within the book. These Prismacolor illustrations are put next to the mixed media of the printmaking and watercolor to help illustrate the cohesive journal. When we reach the final back cover, it is another zinc plate, made again with the open bite and etching. Now we return to the front cover, where we take a look at the second side of the accordion fold. The original gallery was not in English. It was an exercise on perception and what people would feel like when they looked at something that they wanted to understand but they couldn't understand. What I discovered was that as people did this, they began to use their own imagination to have to sort of decipher what the images meant. As a result, I wanted to make this field journal have one side in English so that people could really get the satisfaction of understanding this journey, but also having one side in the original language so that people could originally go through the book and feel like they have the opportunity to use their imagination. As such, when the cover unfolds to the second side, we realize that it's completely in another language. Although it may seem like this other language could be both annoying and slightly a bore after going through the English version of it, you realize that the images are in fact different. They are the etchings and are then watercolored, so the watercolor colors are different and tell a different story, in addition to the fact that the formatting of the other side of the book is also changed. So there are other images, there are other foldouts, there are other maps, and if one was actually so driven to translate the text, they would realize that in fact the text is, while telling the same story, has additional information in the other language. So to get the full, comprehensive, and cohesive information on the civilization, one would technically have to be able to read both the English and the other language. In terms of the amount of things that are in this book, there are roughly 38 plates in this book, all etchings on plexiglass. There are 4 Prismacolor drawings, one on each side. Here is another plate shown. This is the largest in the book. It's a 10 by 16 inch plate. Each of these plates were inked, and then I used trick wiping to help me print the amount that I needed. There are also separate watercolor drawings as shown here, and several different foldouts, and also different languages. The entire book has taken me over a term and a half to complete, and it currently, if stretched out, would be about 35 feet in length. To help hold it, I am making a puzzle box, which I hope to have finished within a week.